guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you the 2019 makeup releases that I have taken off of my wish list. These are all products that I 100% planned on purchasing when they launched, and time passed, I got over them, and I have no intention of buying them anymore. So if you guys want to know all the products that I've taken off of my wish list, then just keep on watching. Alright, so most of the products that I'm going to mention today are eyeshadow palettes, but I'm going to start off with one product that is not an eyeshadow palette, and it's a foundation. This released around the end of January, and I totally thought I was going to buy it, and I definitely do not want it anymore. And it's the Hourglass Vanish Liquid Foundation. This retails for $56, and I was so excited about this foundation, and I thought this was going to be like my holy grail foundation. Who knows, maybe I'll get it in a year and I'll change my mind, but right now I really don't want it anymore. I used to be super obsessed with the Hourglass stick foundation. I still like it, I'm just not somebody who uses stick foundations as much anymore. But I do love the formula of that, and I wanted that in a liquid form. But once I saw people getting this foundation in PR, doing some unboxings on stories, doing some like wear tests with this foundation, I decided it was not for me. Everybody was saying it was super full coverage. It's more of a drying foundation. Everyone was saying that you barely need one pump to cover your whole face. And I just knew that wasn't gonna be the foundation for me. I don't like foundations that feel like so full coverage that you have to use just a little bit or really prep your skin before you use it. I like something a little bit more buildable, a little bit more forgiving. So that made me decide the foundation was not gonna be for me, especially for a $56 foundation where you have to be too careful of how much you apply. You have to blend it out really quickly, or you have to blend it out with like a really damp sponge. I don't like being so precise with my foundation application. I just like putting it on. If I want a little bit more, I'll put on a little bit more. If I put on too much, I'll just buff it out slightly, get it over with in 10 seconds. I don't like a foundation that's so full coverage that you can't like work with it. So yeah, I don't want that foundation anymore, and it's also $56, so I definitely passed on that one. Let me know if you guys ended up trying it. I saw a lot of mixed reviews about it in general. Next up, this is an eyeshadow palette that I told you guys I was going to purchase in a new makeup releases video like a month or two ago. I believe this came out in the beginning of March. It was announced around February, and this is from Makeup Forever. It's a $45 palette, and it's called the Let's Gold palette. When I first saw this palette, I was super excited about it. I'm like, it's a neutral palette from Makeup Forever. I love Makeup Forever. Everything that I have in my collection, well, all 5 products I have from them are my holy grail products. So in my head, they have not disappointed me at all. Everything is super high quality, and I want to try a lot more from them. I still do, but I don't want to try out this palette anymore, because once I saw more pictures of this palette, I'm like, this is the most boring palette ever. And I love neutral palettes, and if you give me a good quality neutral formula, I'm gonna be obsessed with it. But it's like almost too redundant in all the shades. It's like champagne, slightly lighter champagne, slightly darker champagne, so on and so forth. And just like a bunch of medium browns. That's all I saw with this palette, and I'm like, if it was any other brand, I wouldn't have looked twice at this palette. So once I got over my hype of Makeup Forever coming out with an eyeshadow palette, I just got over this palette altogether, because if Urban Decay released this, if Tarte released this, if any other brand came out with the same palette, I would have never been interested in it, because it just looks bland to me. Like, it doesn't look like you can get a lot of different eye looks. I think you could get a lot of very similar looking neutral looks with it. Next up, these are 2 palettes that I wanted for a very specific reason, and I didn't end up purchasing because of that same reason. So these are 2 palettes from Colourpop that came out in the last 2 months. The first one is the It's My Pleasure palette. It's a $12 all purple palette. And then the next one is the Just My Luck palette, $12 all green palette. So originally, when I saw both of those palettes, I'm like, I want more purples in my collection. I want to buy this purple palette. I want more greens in my collection. I want to buy an all green palette. Realistically, I haven't done a purple eye look in 2019. I don't think I've done a green eye look in 2019, so there is no need for more green shadows when I'm not wearing the ones I'm already owning in my collection, or purple shadows. And I always get really trapped with Colourpop because it's super affordable. Shipping gets here so quickly. I love reviewing Colourpop on my channel, but I'm just trying to be a little bit pickier with Colourpop because they release a palette every week and I only need to buy like one a month, not one a week. So I passed on those. I don't regret it one bit. I don't plan on purchasing either palette. I think both of those palettes would have been palettes I used for a week. I maybe put it in an everyday makeup drawer 6 months from now, and then I'll put in a declutter 9 months from now. That's what I end up seeing when I look at those palettes now, instead of like, ooh, pretty purples, when I first saw the palettes being released. So I'm gonna try to avoid those like specific color themed palettes unless it's something that's like completely unique in my collection. Yeah, so I'm gonna be passing on those. All right, so next up I have a Morphe palette, and Morphe rarely ever catches my attention with their releases. I really just tend to purchase their influencer releases. Like I have a couple of the Jaclyn Hill palettes and the James Charles palette. Other than that, I just have Morphe brushes and their setting spray. Both I absolutely love. I actually really love most of the Morphe products, if not all of the Morphe products that I actually have in my collection. But I'm just not interested in all the other products because I feel like they just come out randomly and they're limited edition, or people forget about them like a week or two later. So I saw this palette and I was about to purchase it for sure. This was so pretty to me. I still see it and I still think it's super, super pretty. And this is the Bronze Gold Artistry palette. This is $25. The biggest reason that I didn't end up purchasing this and also kind of close the door on the idea of buying this was when I was doing my declutter, my eyeshadow palette declutter recently, and I realized how infrequently I reach for my Morphe palettes because they're so freaking big and so annoying to just flip open like a textbook and have it like spread out on my vanity and take up all the room. Like, it annoys me to use those palettes just because of the inconvenience. I feel like it ends up getting messy, it gets powdery all over the place. I also don't like to travel with big palettes. I feel like they just get in the way of what I'm doing. A lot of times, like I'll be where I'm filming, I have like a cup of coffee in front of me right now, I have a mirror, I have my laptop, and there's just no room for a huge palette that's the size of a tray. So it annoys me and it makes me not reach for the palette. I know it's like the most like extra problem, but it really makes me not use the palette. But that's really why I ended up not purchasing it, because I know it's just gonna sit in the back of my drawer under all the rest of my palettes because it's so big that all the other palettes have to go on top of it and I'm gonna forget about it. Not only that, but when I have 35 eyeshadows to choose from, I'm usually just gonna use like 4 or 5 of them and not get the full use of the palette because I don't wanna use that same palette like every single day for a month. I'd rather use like 4 or 5 shadows from one palette for a week and then switch over to another palette. I would get like too bored looking at that palette even though I have so many options in front of me. I'd rather just use smaller palettes. So I ended up not buying this for probably dumb reasons, but at the end of the day, I still saved $25, so it's probably not that dumb. So I still think this is really pretty. I just know practically it's gonna collect dust in my collection. All right, another palette that I didn't purchase, and I didn't purchase it for basically the same reason as the Morphe palette, and it's the Too Faced Natural Lust palette. It's pretty much the same color scheme as that Morphe palette that I just mentioned, but it also has one blue shade, and the one blue shade in palettes is what makes me like purchase it. Like that one standout aqua blue color always makes me click buy. And I didn't want to do it with this palette because I knew I would use that blue color a couple of times, go to use the rest, and then kind of move on from the palette in like a week because the rest of the palette are all shades I already have in my collection. So I still think that Natural Lust is really pretty, but I know it's not gonna be something that I reach for all the time. And I believe this one is, I don't see the price here, but I believe it is $59. So it's also a really pricey palette. All right, so lastly, I wanna talk about a product that just released in the past week. This is gonna be more so like an anti-haul on this specific product because it's brand new. And I honestly, I almost bought it last week. I was thinking about it up until like this past weekend. And this is the Tarte Icy Witch palette. This retails for $24. I kind of want this palette, but I don't want it because I'm annoyed about this palette. And honestly, like I'm gonna like rant about this palette for like 2 minutes, but I'm mostly joking because I never actually get like fired up about makeup. but I just want to kind of make fun of this idea for a second. So they came out with the Icy Bitch palette as the April Fool's joke last year. Everyone thought it was a great idea. It was a beautiful palette. And they, of course, like, didn't come out with it last year. And then they redid it this year. And I don't understand why they didn't just come out with the palette they originally teased. Everybody already said yes to that idea. They ended up just changing the format and the layout. I have no idea. You already had the creative out there in the world and approval from thousands and thousands of people, and you decided to still like fall short and not follow through with it. So I'm really actually not mad at this. I just think it's so funny. When I saw, like, Tarte, you had one job. You just had to create the palette you already created. Like, I just thought it was so funny. I don't know why. This is like the biggest makeup humor to me of this week. I still think this is a cute palette, but I was like, you should have just made the palette you said you were gonna make. I don't know. Okay, but with that being said, I'm not gonna purchase this palette. At the end of the day, I'm over this concept. I was into it last year. I'm over it now. I have no idea what it took them a whole year to actually follow through with this idea. But props to them for following through. It's a pretty palette. Like, I'm still kind of into it, but at the same time, over it. So I'm honestly just trying to convince myself not to buy this palette at this point, just by like giving you guys my thoughts out loud, because I'm seeing these swatches and they actually look gorgeous. But I just feel like I would have purchased it on impulse just because I wanted to be like in on the joke with Tarte. And just because I thought it was funny and more of like the like ha 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 factor of the palette versus the actual like, oh, these are pretty colors. So that's why I realized like I didn't actually want the palette. I just like the hype behind it. So that's why I ended up not getting it. But honestly, the colors look gorgeous. So let me know if you guys ended up getting it. I just know, like I said with the Colourpop palette, the all green and blue palettes, I rarely wear them, and I don't think that I would end up wearing them every day just because I buy a palette. So if I buy an all blue palette, it doesn't mean all of a sudden I'm gonna start wearing blue eyeshadow all the time when I know I already don't. The same thing has happened to me with like clothing and shoes, especially like heels. I'll buy heels and then just assume I'm gonna start going fancier places. No, that never ever happens. So for all those reasons, I didn't end up buying the Icy Bitch palette, but I will still give them props for kind of following through with their April Fool's joke, kind of. It's still cute. Let me know if you guys end up purchasing this palette, but I am going to be passing on it. Alright guys, so those are the top products that I've taken off of my makeup wish list for this year. I totally thought I was gonna buy all of the products I mentioned, but I don't think I will ever purchase any of them at this point. I have been buying a lot less makeup recently, or so far in 2019. A big reason for that is because of what's on my head. I just bought a whole bunch of hair and I was saving to get longer extensions. So it made me make more smarter decisions and less impulsive purchases with beauty products. But the VIB sale is gonna be coming up in the next couple weeks. We don't have a date yet. I won't be making videos for that. And also a lot of the products, I'm like, let me actually see if I want them in a couple of months from now for the VIB sale. So I'll let you guys know what I actually do plan on purchasing soon in the VIB sale once we get those dates announced. But for now, not gonna be buying anything that I mentioned. Let me know some products that you guys have taken off of your makeup wish list in the comments below. Or let me know if you ended up purchasing any of the products that I mentioned and you're like, you should change your mind because this product changed my life. So let me know all of that in the comments, and that's gonna be everything for today's video. If you guys liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.